Hey everybody, welcome to the Wednesday live stream. Hope your week is going well. I'm going to bring my co-host on here, Brandy. How's it going, Brandy?
Good. How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. Let me turn down the music. I'm not really ready for today. I've been crazy busy, but how's your week?
Crazy busy. Yeah, there's been a lot going on, hasn't there?
No kidding. My phone is going off the rails, but that's a good thing. Like people are invested, people are getting involved. So maybe we'll bear some fruit here.
The number of people that have reached out to me just in the last few days has been pretty surprising. People are actually starting to find out about this stuff, and so hopefully that's going to put some pressure on.
For sure. And I do want to remind people, like, we're all about the facts. We want to keep focused on the facts, but you know, you also have to kind of do digging and put yourself out there as someone who's willing to listen to all sides of things. Otherwise, you're not going to find those facts, you know? So there's it's an art. There's gray area there, you know. I've been getting heat for like, oh, you're like putting stuff out there, you know, that's not true. And it's like, that's no. I only put facts out. People draw their own conclusion, you know. If that's not on me. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. That was on my mind. Do you have anything on your mind, Brandy?
Oh, I'll wait until we get into it because, yes, I've got some thoughts on some things.
Okay. Good. Um, all right. Well, I'll bring on our special guest tonight. There was, I guess, a couple of years ago, I'll let her tell it from her perspective, but I became aware of a lawsuit against our community college. I think about a month ago, someone had sent it to me, and you know, read the write up, read the judgments, and it seemed essentially the college failed to investigate properly and listen to the student's allegation and take it seriously. And that was the basis of the lawsuit, at least from my perspective, from reading the judgment. So without further ado, I'll bring on, I hope I don't butcher this name. I'll just say Nicole and I'll let her introduce herself. But yeah, Nicole, who was the student involved in the lawsuit. So, hi,
Hi,
Nicole, how's it going?
it's
Cool.
going good. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So
Appreciate you being on. Yeah.
I'll just be clear that it wasn't a misunderstanding or mistake or a failure to investigate or take something seriously. This is an ongoing um, issue. Or it had been year after year before me. There was victim after victim after victim for various bigoted reasons, age, national origin, and just things where they got to pick someone to just absolutely terrorize. And the complaints mirrored each other. The things that the staff would do were identical year after year, especially in the nursing program. Single someone out and then just start making wild accusations about them. So changing my passing grades to failing grades, accuse me of plagiarism, and then the nail in the coffin, of course, is accusing you of being unsafe with your patients. So
Oh,
it
wow.
just, and I had a decade in emergency medicine before I went to nursing school. I had been an EMT and then a paramedic. And so what they didn't just destroy my future nursing, they destroyed the whole decade of work I'd put in, because no one's going to touch you after an allegation of being unsafe with your patients is made. And so I really had no options but to pursue legal action after Patty Scott told me to, quote, bring it on.
Oh, wow. So just for viewers, that Patty Scott is the president of Southwestern Oregon Community College. Based on her PERS disbursement, she retired in 2020, but she's still currently the president of the community college. That's okay. So in court, you were able to prove that you weren't the only person.
Yes, there was a lot of fear. I mean, the whole culture of SWAC, at least during my time there is complete fear, just absolute terror and intimidation. So, well, I had a class full of students that supported me. They couldn't be seen in public with me. They couldn't speak up. They couldn't because
Wow.
they'd be next. So it's a very traumatizing educational experience, to say the least. I know I ended up doing my bachelor's degree in political science online, starting from a homeless shelter because they had destroyed my life so badly. And when I initiated legal action, a lot of favors were called in. There's definitely a network in Coos Bay, unfortunately, that acts as a criminal enterprise. So when I saw your post about the taxpayers basically being defrauded by Patty Scott, it wasn't a shock to me at all. I'm like, that's what they do. And so there were a lot of things done to me and my children. When I picked a fight with SWAC, I picked a fight with a network, and it was horrifying. And so I ended up in a homeless shelter that was actually partnering with SWAC. And when I wouldn't, they harassed me into dismissing the case. And when I wouldn't dismiss the case, they kicked us out on the street. So we lived in a woodshed. And I had to rebuild everything from scratch. My medical career had been destroyed, and for no reason. I was completely innocent of all of their allegations. And so I did my bachelor's degree online in political science and graduated summa cum laude and a national honor student, and got a substantial scholarship to law school. And rebuilt. But my first time back in a classroom was my first day of law school. And it was just, I realized how bad the PTSD was because it took me a long time to feel safe in an educational environment after SWAC. And if changes aren't made, significant changes, again, I'm just the person who voiced up and won, but I'm from a long line of people who like had their lives destroyed by just, it was almost for no reason, just it's fun to them. It's just a game. They enjoy it. They get off on it. They're just really horrific people. And I'm an attorney now, so I can say everything that I say, I can prove. Otherwise it would be defamation, and I'm not the least bit scared of that. Bring it on, because everything I kept, immaculate receipts. And that's why a jury unanimously and very eagerly punished Patty Scott and SWAC. The jury almost seemed like, why are you even here? Why are we even in court? Like, you don't have a case, you don't have a defense. And it was just getting lie after lie, just getting exposed and exposed. People who had been employed there, who had committed perjury in depositions, but were no longer employed there, finally got to tell the truth. And there was just shock throughout the courtroom, like when they just kept getting exposed. And finally, Patty Scott dragged her kids in to try and look more human because the jury would just hated her and were glaring at her. And they're like, you wasted almost 2 weeks of our lives. Why? And so it was a really interesting experience. Really scary experience, but when their verdict came back, it was vindication. And it was never about money. It was to show that I wasn't a plagiarist. I wasn't unsafe with my patients. I was an excellent candidate to be a nurse. I would have been a fantastic one. But because of these vindictive, almost psychotic games that are played every year on this campus, I had no choice but to start from scratch and vindicate my name.
It's unreal.
You-
Nicole, you telling that story actually triggered a memory. I took one class through SWAC right while I was still in high school. I was accepted in through a grant program. I was accused of plagiarism in that course. And I have never plagiarized in my life. I have an incredible academic record. And I was taken out into the hallway and basically berated until I broke down into tears because this teacher or professor didn't believe that I could have written that paper. I even cited my sources. And I was in high school, but yeah, I had completely forgot about that. God, I haven't thought about that in years
They
until
have
you
one
just
playbook.
mentioned that.
And that was what was crazy to me, is like the definition of insanity. What they say is doing the same thing over and over, but it works. I mean, the playbook works 99% of the time when they use it. It just, for me, I learned pretty quickly what it was, and they never all the way through the 6-year battle, all the way to closing arguments, all the way to the Ninth Circuit. It's just the same playbook, and that's just gaslighting people, making them feel like they're crazy. Any plagiarism, quote unquote, that I did or didn't do was the exact same amount in like in-class projects as everybody else. So like if we were doing a GI study, we were writing from the book onto our pages as a group and turning it
Sure.
in. And so I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, technically we didn't cite the textbook in class, but you were there and you took everyone's like all, so either the whole nursing program
Right.
plagiarized this assignment, or
I've never heard
it's
of anyone being required to take notes in like MLA format either.
yeah, right. No, exactly. And it was,
So,
the assignments in question were, my attorney ended up running all the other papers through Grammarly. And when one of the teachers was on the stand, he's like, this person had like a 95% plagiarism, and this person had like, why did you single this person out? And the answer is because I was already singled out. Melissa Sperry picked her victim year after year, and was completely backed up by Susan Walker, the director at the time. Obviously I went to her first, and then I went to Tim Daly, the vice president. Um, and then eventually I went to Patty Scott herself. And I mean, talk about ice queen, like her contempt for her students is palpable in the air when you're around her. I mean, I've never seen such dead eyes. She is a very, very scary person, and definitely not someone who should be around students.
wow.
I'll intervene to, I guess, just put a disclaimer out. I am running for the SWAC board, one of the positions. I'd be 1 out of 7. And if anyone's watching this, I just want people to make your decision for that vote based on facts and your own investigation and into the candidates and what they have to offer. Don't watch this video and have a knee-jerk reaction. That's not any discount to what you're talking about. I just don't want people to get the impression that this is like an attack that I'm using for my campaign. I mean, my campaign is about getting to the bottom of the truth and understanding our community and understanding what our college could offer the community and excelling at it. And the reason I decided to run is because I keep hearing stories like this. I just met somebody in my neighborhood today who worked for the college for 15 years. And these conversations, these stories keep being echoed over and over and over. And I've heard the occasional other side of the story, but it is overwhelmingly troubling to hear this stuff. But anyways, I just want to throw that out there, that people should make their decision, do research on the candidates and do research on the full picture. Please don't think that I'm trying to have people make a decision based on this one interview. But that being said, this
Just like
is
I triggered a memory for Brandy.
heartbreaking.
Like it's like it is the same story, and it is something that is affecting an entire community, not just Coos Bay, but the entire South Coast. This is the place where people can go to get a better education, and the way that it is basically being kind of run by a horrific, vindictive mafia type style of administration is something that needs to change. And again, being a political science major now, law school and everything like that, I can tell you change happens at the lowest local levels. I mean, it really is important
Culture.
for exactly. And if you want your children to be safe at SWAC, you need to make drastic changes. Because again, these stories are being echoed. And I know you're not personally having me on to attack SWAC, because there were incredible teachers. I'm still friends with a lot of those educators today. I mean, there are incredible people working there. I mean, I just the list of names of people who work there and are fantastic vastly exceeds the list of people who are committing these atrocious acts that are destroying futures and lives. And so I want to give them that. This isn't something where you need to go and do a complete, gutting and clean everyone out, because the majority of people and the educators at SWAC are fantastic. But there is a group, and it definitely starts at a board level, that support things that violate the Constitution, that they just do whatever they want, and they've gotten away with it for so long that they're sloppy. That's how I won. They were so used to people just folding and falling apart. And technically I did. They broke me. You do start to wonder if you're crazy, because that's what they're telling you. You're crazy. You're imagining
Wow.
stuff. And so,
Nicole, I
You had
think you made a
mentioned,
really important point that there are so many good people at SWAC. One of the things that we've been told about government corruption is that it's in government, it's people in government that are telling us where to look. There are good people at SWAC, and I think it's important for those people to remember that they outnumber the group of people who has kind of taken covert control and are using covert abuse tactics to control, manipulate, intimidate. But the good people outnumber the bad people. And when the good people find each other and join together, they can't be intimidated the same way. And so I would
exactly.
really encourage, these people who know what's going on, reach out to somebody and tell somebody, and just, we're really good about protecting our sources. So if people want to reach out to us and say, hey, put my name on your list of people to, like, when this blows up and you have a lot of people on board to come forward, we're ready. Because if it's just one person, they can easily be run out and intimidated, but they're not going to be able to take on 20, 30 people,
No, absolutely. I did
15
get a
people.
lot, and I'm not going to, of course, name names, but I did receive, once the verdict went, unfortunately, global. It I did receive a lot of DMs from SWAC staff, even some I never met, just really thanking me. Um,
Wow.
the level of fear, it goes so much higher than the students. Like, for example, Tim Daly was the vice president when I was there, and Francisco Saldivar was the dean involved. Um, by the time we went to trial, Tim Daly was retired, and he completely flipped his script and completely told the truth, and seemed really like a million pounds had come off of his shoulders. And you should have seen Patty Scott's reaction. Like, the fact that she couldn't have her nails in him
Was she
anymore.
mad? Was it
Oh,
anger?
the
Rage?
rage, like you could just see it. And their attorney, bless his heart, but he's very pale, and so when he gets worked up, he turns bright red. And so, just like a dead giveaway, we were kind of like always making fun of that during the trial, because he it's like, it's not good for litigation if you have such a big tell. And I have never seen a human being turn more red than when, because their whole defense was just like, we didn't know about these complaints, we weren't aware, she didn't tell us these, like, how could we have done anything about something we didn't know about? And then Tim Daly took the stand, and again in depositions he had said, no, she didn't come to me, no, she didn't disclose this. And then on the stand he's like, oh yeah, I remember that meeting, it was intense. And then Francisco Saldivar left education altogether, he's in the construction now. So it's just like, I wasn't the only one traumatized. There were people who were trying to do their jobs and weren't allowed to do their jobs. And if you're telling me that the vice president wasn't being controlled, there's no way, shape, or form, because when he finally wasn't under the control of the board and Patty Scott, you could tell that he's like, now I can kind of die with like guilt free, because he had been carrying that for years and lying and committing perjury for years. And the second that he didn't have to, he was almost ecstatic to confess.
I think that's one of the worst parts about this type of situation is the lie that others have to carry to protect what is a form of abuser. They're these people are abusing a system, they're manipulating people, they're intimidating people, harassing people. That sucks. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, SWAC is the first community college in Oregon.
Yeah.
There should be so much pride in that. I mean, there should be so much pride, and especially considering that it really is the gateway for South Coast, people to have the life that they want.
It's the
And
only chance people have here to get an education and stay here locally.
exactly. And so, I mean, to make it safe, I couldn't believe I had a friend send me your post about, protecting a sexual predator. Um, and it obviously didn't surprise me, but it makes me so sad. I have so much love for so many people at SWAC. I had such a sense of pride being there. Um, it might have turned to PTSD, but that doesn't mean it needs to be that way for anyone else. And that's why I'm
Right.
here. Anything that I can contribute so that other families don't experience, what my kids and I suffered through, I'm going to hop on that chance. So when you asked me to be here, I'm like, yes, absolutely.
It's what it takes. Because people like me and you are going to have to stand up and call on all of the people to come together, communicate with each other, coordinate with each other, because we outnumber both predators and enablers. And I don't know what the deal is with protecting predators. I don't, I wonder if maybe we're going to get to the bottom of it at some point, but it kind of seems like a theme, and a lot of people have a lot of questions and they're not getting answers. It almost seems like it's a combination of like contempt and hubris.
It's a network, and I'm not afraid to say that because I was attacked by the network. Um, it is a very close knit network, so there's nothing that the people in that, if you want to call it a network or a criminal enterprise, even because that's factual too. There's nothing they can't get away with, and they won't protect each other from, as we saw in my case. I mean, all like Patty Scott ever had to do in my case was, and I offered free settlements. I offered to sign non-disclosure agreements. I offered anything if she would just do her job and turn to her staff and say, knock it off, follow the rules. But no, she when I met with her and I said, I won't be the one that goes away. I know that I have the complaints of the prior students. I know that this is a constant problem, and you are not going to have the same result with me. If you want to pursue this, if you don't tell them to stop, I will be basically a pain in your ass for the rest of your life. I'm not going away. And that's when she said to bring it on. So there's nothing that they won't protect each other from. So this predator that I read about, he's in their network. I don't know why. I don't know exactly how it works, but he's in. So there's nothing that he won't be protected from. And if you're not in that network, pray, because it could be you at any time for any reason. Um, I noticed that, like in the nursing program, whether it was cultural differences, age differences, or being too pretty, there was definitely a girl that got singled out because she was attractive. So you never know what the reason's going to be, but it could be you for any reason at any time.
I was just
Well,
like,
I think it's ego. It's the reason they can't admit they're wrong. They're filled with ego and they can't say I made a mistake, or I might have misjudged someone, or I might have made a wrong choice. And then there is the network. they all band together, and it does go beyond that. I'm being attacked by it right now. If the network is watching, you've fucked with the wrong guy and the wrong girl, apparently.
Oh,
And
Jesus. I
Brandy,
worked
you're
in
pretty you're a
anti-corruption and fraud
badass too.
prevention in New York
We'll bring you
City.
in on
Like
it.
when Patty Scott says, bring it on, I don't think she has any idea. Girl, you have been in Coos County way too long. That is such an ignorant thing to say to people who have, oh, goodness.
That was
So
evidence because it was a federal trial, so it happened in Eugene. So that was evidence. It's like we dug this woman out of a cave. Like she was genuinely shocked that she couldn't just say this is how it's going to be, and that it just didn't work out for her. Like there was such a culture shock that she has been in Coos Bay too long. She has been getting away with this for too long, and so for her to be dragged to Eugene and into a federal court was. I would say it was eye-opening, but it wasn't, because there is no humility or ever admitting wrongdoing. The case went to the Ninth Circuit. Because SWOC is self-insured through the state, I was always suing the state. So they were able to get every public college to join in an amicus brief against me. So I literally took on the entire state. A single person versus every single college, every single law school, every single law student that they were able to bring in, every single lawyer. And we went to the Ninth Circuit, and it was literally thousands and me. And they managed to get the reward reduced, but they upheld the verdict. So they're like thousands of people begging and pleading to overturn this, crazy policy reasons like, oh, if we let this stand and we say that grades are going to get released on Friday and we don't release them until Monday and Timmy gets upset, then now he can sue us. And it's like, that's your comparison to what happened to me? Like then the Ninth Circuit found it just as ridiculous. And they're like, yeah, no, this was horrific. And it's been proven to a unanimous jury that was horrific. So they really tried. They called in every favor. I mean, she is powerful, but there's facts and the truth. And the truth is, at the end of the day, always going to uphold and stand up. It taught me so much, about keeping receipts and never veering off the path of absolute 100% honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that comfort?
I want to mention for people watching, if you're doubting any of this, first of all, you can look it up. There's documentation, there's judgments, there's things out there that you can read up on this. But also, like, we have to either trust our judicial system or not, and a unanimous jury, I think, speaks for itself. So this isn't just an allegation. This is a unanimous judgment, a unanimous verdict from a trial that was, how long was this
It was
trial?
nearly 2 weeks. Yeah, it was nearly 2 weeks, and it took place like on the 4th of July. So there was a break in the middle of the trial for the 4th of July, which we thought was kind of poetic,
How long
because
did it take to get to trial?
years. I was already in my second year of law school. So again, having started from scratch, like working on my bachelor's, graduating with my bachelor's, taking the LSAT, getting into law school, moving across this country. And by the time I took the stand, they're like, so where are you at in life? I'm like, I'm going into my second year of law school. And the jury was kind of like, like,
Wow.
So, and law school was a fantastic experience. It just took a lot of time for me to feel safe. And I think they understood that. And so it was a very supportive, incredible environment. And so I know that SWAT can be that too, because it already mostly is, but even the teachers are scared. So we have a problem.
I mean, there's an admitted culture problem. So I had 2 debates last week with the other candidates on this for running for SWAC with the incumbents, and we're asked what number one priority. What are you going to do at the college? What are you going to focus on? And I said, culture. We need to fix the culture. It's a resounding hymn of people that I keep talking to that there's a toxic culture there. And they admit, the incumbents admitted that, yeah, like right now they're actually, and they put it up as if they're handling it. They're going to have work sessions, they're going to have meetings, and I hope they do. Because I mean, I might not be involved, and even if I am, I can't run the college myself. So they do need to get a handle on this. We do need to have work sessions, town halls, meetings, and get to the bottom of how we can fix this. Because you're right, like this is such an important asset to the whole South Coast, Brookings all the way up to Reedsport. It's huge. And like you were trying to be a nurse. We need nurses. We need nurses right here in our community. And like what an incredible person, that you took something like a horrible moment in your life and turned it around. You're an attorney now. That's amazing. That requires a huge amount of drive and energy and
Spite.
forethought, and I applaud you for that. That
Yeah.
that too. I mean, that's part of the motivation, I suppose. But yeah, no, like
No,
that
truly
is
just
badass. And
watching my attorneys, do what they did, and the way that they did it was such an inspiration. So I knew that
That's cool.
I want to be somebody who goes in, to civil litigation to protect teachers, students, anyone who kind of dealt with the same things that I did. So yeah, I did make lemonade.
that's
It doesn't
incredible.
change the fact, I still have night terrors, and that it's something my daughters still have to work through in therapy. Being homeless in a woodshed isn't exactly an ideal childhood. So I also want to point out that, like, if you feel like there's issues with the medical community in Coos Bay, you've got to think that where these nurses are coming from, they weren't even allowed to advocate for their classmate. How the hell are they going to advocate for their patients? They were taught fear and absolute subordination. And to be a nurse, you have to be an advocate. And I'm not saying that the students that I went to school with weren't fantastic, but they were definitely broken down into not an advocacy role at all, but a submissive role, a
Right.
submissive to a toxic culture, which, we still see a lot of reports and things like that about Bay Area Hospital. I'm just like, yeah, well, when you look at the source of what they're taught from the very beginning, it makes sense that that's also not a good environment. And if you can change SWOC, you can change almost every career and the way that people perceive their career, and turn that around so that they are excellent professionals and not scared professionals.
So if you're comfortable enough, could we go into your time after leaving the college? You mentioned being homeless. You mentioned that there was a program in Coos Bay that you were a part of. Could you go into that a little more?
Sure. So I was illegally evicted. When I say network, I mean network. I was illegally evicted. I was illegally fired. Um, a social worker, seriously not afraid to say this, Lydia Casas, who had her office on SWAT campus for many years. She was alumni. She was friends with the defendants. She showed up and took my kids away from me. Said that I was insane, that I was a drug addict, that I was a liar, that I was an alcoholic, that I was dangerously crazy. And the things that she did to build the case, she absolutely broke the law. She absolutely broke protocol. My ex-husband was my convicted abuser, convicted of child abuse, run a background check before you marry someone. And she helped him get his restraining order, the restraining order I had against him, overturned in exchange for his false testimony against me. So what we went through was crazy. I
Wow.
volunteered for absolutely everything. I did a 9-hour psych evaluation with the top forensic psychologists in the state. And I'm saner than even I thought. I'm like, whoa, that's positive. I volunteered for months of abstinence, drug and alcohol treatment to show that I didn't have any issues. And the case just fell apart and finally got to the point where I was, in court because my restraining order had been overturned. My ex-husband strangled me, felony strangulation. And then they tried to turn that into a case against me, which for months they've been calling me a liar. For months they've been saying I'm the crazy, dangerous one. And then when he gets arrested, goes to jail, confesses, they try to spin it as mutual combat and that I'm a violent and angry person. And that's when I had it, because I have it. I even have a recording of the clip in court, Judge Megan Jaco's courtroom. I was trying to fire my attorney because she was like an anti-attorney. And so I'm finally like, actually, I'll just play it for you. It's just a quick clip. And this is when everything turned around. So once this was on the record, which is the only thing these people are afraid of, apparently, not only did they dismiss the case, they tried to prevent me from coming to the dismissal hearing. And they just like, okay, we got it. Sorry. 1 second. Voice memos. Let's see if I can get this. Turned up enough. Can you hear that?
It's really low volume.
Okay, let me
You're gonna have
take
to
my
blast the volume on the device and put it probably right up on the speaker. There you go. Oh, now you're on mute.
You took your Apple AirPods out
lawyer
and
that I
turned
can
off.
trust moving forward to handle this accordingly. She's
There we go.
Mr. Gililland is correct, Your Honor, but the problem is now the DOJ is again trying to add language that has no basis in reality, and I need a lawyer that I can trust moving forward to handle this accordingly. She's saying that the abuse was mutual. I'm not saying that. Damon's not saying that. DHS isn't saying that. The police aren't saying that. So it just has no room on the petition. So I need an attorney.
When she said she's saying it, she's not talking about me because I'm not saying it.
She's talking about me, Your Honor. The DOJ.
Okay.
There's a lot of she's involved. So the pronouns.
So the DOJ, of course, represents DHS. She's their lawyer.
They're not saying that I'm abusive, so it's just coming out of nowhere. So, Your Honor, the service that is being requested, so Ms. Gililland has already completed TREM, and she's already in counseling at this point in time. We are requesting that she complete a state assessment to see if she needs women's alternative to violence, because frankly, we don't know what other service to give her at this point in time. It's entirely possible that assessment will simply say that no services are needed, and that's just a fact, but that's the service that the agency is requesting that Mother complete at this point in time. There's been no request that Mother admit in any of the language that she is somehow an aggressor or is the cause. There's been no request for that, and I frankly don't expect any parent to really admit that. But that is the service that's being requested, so I think that's where we're coming from. That would be implied in saying that I need an assessment for women's alternative to violence. I mean, that wasn't even brought up in the 8 months that I was trying to explain to them that Damon was violent, and they didn't have him do that until recently. So having me do it is just a slap in the face at this point. For 8 months, I've been called a liar, I've been called crazy, I've been called a drug addict, and I'm not going to continue to have this dynamic where I have to keep defending lies, at least not without an attorney that I can trust.
So that wasn't true. That was Emily Snook as the prosecutor, and she said we haven't asked Mother to admit to any language, and I have the petition, I have the language. She did, and even Vice News did a big story on this where they talked about that.
Wow.
So they let me put these back in. So she absolutely was lying when she said that they didn't ask me they didn't try to file a petition calling me violent after my own abuse because they got the restraining order overturned. And so it was hard to not connect, as Vice even said, all of this back to SWAC. It was really difficult not to, because there was, like, in the eviction hearing, the lawsuit was brought up multiple times. The case against SWAC. What does that have to do with an eviction hearing? And it's like, oh, Your Honor, she's such a troublemaker in our community. Like, give us this. And then when I was evicted, there was no place to go but the SAFE Project. And the SAFE Project is partnering with SWAC. And then they encouraged me to go back to SWAC and back to Tim Daly and try to work something out and come to closure. Which I did. I even did that. I went and had another meeting and tried to resolve it, being told, no, we're not going to fix your grades. No, we're not going to let you back in. And I'm like, well, if you're still going to steal my future, then I'm going to keep proceeding. When that happened, harassment at the shelter just high pitched, and then they threw us out on the street. So it goes a lot deeper in the community because SWAC is probably the most powerful institution 100 miles in any direction. So again, it's not a lot of people, but it's a few powerful people. And
interesting.
I'm not, and I think they do a lot of things to make you sound crazy, but then just like that Vice News in 2020, I recommend looking that up. That was a 10-month investigation because they were so afraid of airing all of this corruption that they covered. I mean, everything had to be proven in 5 different ways. That's why I have these recordings. That's why I have all of the transcripts. I have thousands of documents. I have, everything, so that anything that was printed in the media, especially, had been proven 5-6 times over. So when they talk about the child custody case and how it appears to be very clearly linked to my lawsuit and the eviction being linked to the lawsuit and all of these things, it's true. So there's no wonder that it's an environment of such fear, because she knew very well when she said to bring it on that she was going to rain hell down on me. She just didn't know who she was dealing with either.
I'm looking at the Vice
So-
article right now.
Walk us through give us a timeline. So you have this situation happen at the college, you bring it to the college's attention. It comes to a climax with this meeting with Patty Scott where you say, where are we going? We're going this way or this way. And she says, bring it on, right? The stuff you're talking about with the eviction and the child case and all that, is that all after this climax with Patty Scott?
Immediately. So I took my finals on a Monday. I think it was June 11th, 2018. My children were removed the next day. So, and then when I finally got my kids back, and now I'm doing everything to, make sure that we're good to go, then we were evicted. So once the DHS was out of our lives, and because when they're in your lives, they control your life. They can make you do anything. They can be as outrageous as they want. Luckily, a new social worker took over for Lydia Costas. She was just the initial one. Lydia actually went to that social worker and said, here's how this is going to go, which in itself, I believe, is illegal, if not absolutely against protocol. And thankfully, this social worker who took over, she's like, that was an immediate red flag for me. Like, hearing that immediately sent off alarm bells, because it's so not okay to do that. So she really investigated hard, and she gave me back custody. And she's like, yeah, there's no case here. And again, I did
God
jump through
bless her.
Yes, no, she's an angel. I still tear up when I think about her and how lucky we were that she came into the situation. So again, there are plenty of good people there doing the right thing, but there's these few that they can call on that can. And if you're not, imagine if I did have, a mental disability, that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad parent. But had that psych evaluation turned up something like bipolar or something that so many people deal with, I never would have seen my kids again. And honestly, that was their downfall. I probably would have given up on the case eventually if they hadn't have hurt my children. So that was the driving force. And then to show and that's what really got me to law school, is like, not necessarily spite, but to show my kids, yeah, it really sucks. Yes. I mean, my youngest was so abused in her first placement and starved and beaten and neglected and God knows what else, that she's developmentally delayed from trauma. The new social worker had to go in and remove her from that first placement. So
Wow.
it's a lot to overcome, but the reason that I excelled and, did 18 credit hours while working full time, while studying for my LSAT, while being a single mom, it was to get to this point so I can turn to my daughters and be like, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Like, Bad things happen, but don't let broken people break you.
Nicole, I don't know if you had mentioned, what type of law do you practice?
I'm going into human and civil rights.
So if they try this shit with me, would you like to help me sue them?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay.
Oh my God. Like the poeticness
Yeah.
of that full
Yeah.
circle would be wonderful. And again, I have the best representation. Initially, there was a Portland attorney that took the case, and for some reason, I can't speak to, but he and now that I'm an attorney, I realize exactly how wrong this was. But he just abandoned the case. He just ghosted me. Like the Vice article says at the end, like how I hadn't heard from him. He's not responding. He was making moves in the case that required my consent without my consent. So we finally had to like literally escape Oregon because it was just getting so insane, and went back home to where we're from in Utah. And I ended up reaching out to a whistleblower organization that had like a list of attorneys. And there happened to be one attorney in Salt Lake that happened to be licensed in Oregon. He had never, it's top law firm in Utah. He had never practiced in Oregon, but when he read the Vice story, he took the case. So I reached out to, I think, every attorney possible in Oregon, and everyone was too afraid to take the case. And
Are you
so,
licensed to practice in Oregon?
no, I'm going to do that just for shits and giggles. Like,
You should, because like just in case you happen to want to take a random case out of Coos County, I
yes.
do keep a law firm on retainer, but I would prefer to have someone in my pocket who's a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I'm going to apply. I think, I mean, they might try to push back on that on me because of how much they put me through and me knowing that. But, you know, I have been invited plenty of times to speak at the law schools in Oregon, and I do that virtually. And I always joke that, like, I'm going to apply to their bar. Just like, what are you going to tell me? No, because you know what happened to me, or yes,
Yeah.
because we need people in Oregon that are willing to stand up to this type of crap. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna branch out. I did receive a score on the uniform bar exam that's high enough to apply pretty much in any UBE state. So I already meet the
Will they
requirements.
reciprocate?
Yeah, you can just, that's the great thing
Cool.
about there's only a few states that don't do the UBE, and Oregon and Massachusetts is where I'm at now. I wanted to get as far away as I could. So, but I got a score that would transfer to Oregon. So I've considered
Cool.
it just so that, you know, people who are dealing with the people I dealt with know that they can have someone that would eagerly jump in, because I've never.
And there's no reason you can have more than one attorney working on a case, right?
Oh yeah, and yes, absolutely. So you can be brought in just to assist. And you don't even have to be licensed in the state. You just have to have an attorney that's licensed in the state to work with that attorney too. So if there's any attorneys out there listening that want some assistance, I do a lot of volunteer work too. So I don't expect much. I have a lot of fun with it.
Do you know if there's any? Do you know if there's any pre-law program at SWAC? Like, would they be interested in having you? Would you be interested in coming back and telling your story someday?
Yeah, I mean, I always joke that my goal is to get assassinated, and so that's how I want to go out. But I mean, it's terrifying to think about going back into Coos County.
It is.
But absolutely, because I think that would be the ultimate full circle healing moment where it's like, I'm brave enough to do that. So I don't think that there's any pre-law, but general studies is a really great way to go if that's something you're interested in, and that's something that SWAC offers. So starting that, it's just really flexible. And any bachelor's degree gets you into law school if you have the right GPA and you did well on your LSAT. So, I mean, you can major in dance. It doesn't matter. So that's the great thing about the United States. I applied to practice in New Zealand as well, and they have a specific bachelor's that you have to have. And because I'm an American, it doesn't apply. But a lot of countries are very specific, and whereas the United States, they're like, we want people from every reach of life coming to law school. So if that's a goal,
that's cool.
Don't worry about what you major in. because you can still get into law school.
So give me a walkthrough, because we do stories on the homeless a lot on this program, and I've been focusing on it for years. I mean, I just went out this weekend and encountered 10 people living in the woods on SWAC property at currently, like just as of Sunday. So you were saying you were homeless, you were living in a wooden shack. Like, how do you get from that point to being an attorney? And is it, did you get help? Was it all you? Was it just perseverance and grit? Like, let's say there's some of those people watching this show that are out there feeling like it's the end of the world. There's no hope. There's nothing they can do. Is there hope? Is there something they can do? Can they re-enter society?
Absolutely. It's not easy, of course not. And you do need heroes along the way. So changing the stigma around homelessness and knowing that you can be someone who built a really solid life like I had and end up homeless based on nefarious actions of others. So to just assume a homeless person is lazy or crazy or a drug addict is so false, especially in our current economy and the cost of housing and our workforce and how much is just being pulled out from underneath us. I think we're all unified in that no matter what your political beliefs are, we believe that hardworking Americans should be able to afford to live.
What kind of services are out there for people who want to get off the street and into a stable situation?
For me, it was just, basic state services. Here it's called SNAP. Is it still it's SNAP in Oregon?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So like, that's how I got food. There was a Good Samaritan who read the first national story. He lives in Portland. He works for the government and, he reached out to me and he's like, I have a camping trailer that I want to let you borrow. I can bring it anywhere. Just tell me where to drop it off and I'll let you use it. And at first I'm like, so nervous. Like I checked the whole thing for cameras and like wondering if he's like a creep. To this day, he is family. He's my girl's godfather. So there are heroes along the way.
Yeah.
So we did that. You can see the trailer in that Vice article. And I wanted to get out of Coos County because I thought that the corruption was pretty much just centered there. And so we moved to Blue River and put the camper there because the trial was going to be in Eugene anyway. So I wanted to get closer to Eugene. Unfortunately, I think that Coos Bay had done such an incredible job of screwing everything up as badly as they could when it came to me. And I had so much evidence and so much against state officials for doing the things that they did, all because Coos Bay they're so secluded and they just kind of, this network just kind of doesn't think beyond that bubble. And so I think once it got so bad that I could prove things like there's a very strong possibility that my children were kidnapped by this woman in order to try to make this lawsuit go away. That's serious. I mean, if your kids aren't even safe and that could happen to you, there's going to be outrage. But I don't think the state handled it well either. So I think there was more of an attempt to do covering up. And even after the psych evaluation, there was a constant questioning of my sanity. And even for the trial, I had another psych evaluation from the top forensic psychologist in the country. Like she works, specifically with the highest levels of government. And I remember when she took the stand, it was the only time opposing counsel didn't want to do the cross. He made his side chair, who had never spoken during the whole trial or never asked a single question. He made him do her cross because he was so intimidated. And when she got off the stand, opposing counsel stumbled over and was so excited to meet her because she was so famous. So I'm like, no, my sanity isn't in question. There was one point when it says, oh, she's really paranoid and hypervigilant. And the response from the doctor was like, I can't imagine why. Like,
That's crazy that they would basically like whip you into this state and then go look at her. She's crazy. That's like so textbook covert abuse.
and that's exactly
That's
what they did all the way to
wild.
the end. And luckily on the stand, I was on the stand for 2 days, you know, and I just got to speak my truth. And then we got to bring in everyone involved, and just everyone got ripped to shreds. I remember one professor, thank you. One professor, she had her phone ringing like 3 or 4 times on the stand, and the judge had to be like, you know, that's not like appropriate, right? Can you turn off your cell phone while you're testifying in federal court, maybe? And like, so they just looked so bad. And I remember, you know, because the primary abuser in this was Melissa Sperry. And I made the decision to not be in the courtroom when she testified. It was just too much for me. I couldn't, because she's got like this, you know, the Cheshire cat grin. And I remember opposing counsel when he was crossing me, he's like, oh, so she yelled at you and she was angry at you. And I'm like, no. Melissa Sperry doesn't get angry. She smiles and pulls off the whole sweet, lovey-dovey grandma look. And I mean, while she's committing atrocious acts of evil, she's doing it with a big smile on her face. And I had my friends and colleagues in the courtroom. And after she just got off the stand and we all convened outside the courtroom, they're like, you described her so perfectly that when she was doing that to the jury, they were offended. So like I had prepped the jury for how she was going to be. And they were like, that girl was spot on. Like this woman
That's
is
smart of you. That's very, I don't know if you knew what you were doing, but that's smart.
No, I just, all I could do was like just speak the truth. And like I think he knew.
Yeah.
We've been in it for years. So I think opposing counsel had a good feeling for how anyone was going to come across on the stand. And that's why he asked me that question. Oh, so she's angry. She's going to yell. And I'm just like, nice try, buddy. No, that's not what's going to happen.
Are you a Harry Potter fan by any chance?
Yes.
Do you know Dolores Umbridge in the 5th novel?
Yes.
This is who I'm picturing at the moment.
That is the perfect description. And it's crazy because like I was sitting in an ER not that long ago. I had in my second year of law school developed Guillain-Barré syndrome. So I recovered, but I was paralyzed from the waist down for a while, and now I walk with a cane. But I was just sitting in an ER waiting for an appointment and watching reels on Facebook, and there was a reel of me, like me and my kids popped up on the screen. And like, he did a really, really good job. And so I'm like, wow, but it was all, and it just slammed Melissa. It just absolutely decimated her. And I was reading in the comments that like now her Rate My Professor shut down and all of like, she's been let go. She was moved off to Wyoming and she's not there anymore. I don't know exactly if she retired or if she was fired, but basically her life's in ruins. And I'm just like, I hope it was worth it, but it's not just for me, but for the however many students you did this to year after year. And very Umbridge, very, very Umbridge. So that was a good comparison.
I have a friend who's involved in the nursing program at SWAC, and I hear good things about its current state. So maybe you've turned the page for them or helped them.
I know that there's one teacher there that I can't speak highly enough about. I won't name her just because I don't want to like involve her, but she came to trial and she told the truth, and she'd always told the truth, and she wasn't going to back down from the truth. She showed integrity the entire time, and she's there now. So that makes me feel hopeful. Wow. But I also know that they've done things at SWAC that don't signal improvement, but signal protection for them. So what my understanding is now the nursing students have to sign a waiver that they can't sue.
Wow.
Isn't that illegal? I mean, I don't
insane.
know that you can.
waive. Yeah, I don't
I
think you can
didn't
waive your
sign a waiver
constitutional
when I,
rights.
right?
No,
I didn't sign a waiver like that when I went to college. That's insane.
no, that was confirmed to me several years ago. I don't know if they had to reverse that, but they were having new nursing students sign a
Wow.
waiver. And also what I went on was their harassment policy. So they've really changed their harassment policy to basically be very dismissive and vague compared to what it used to be. Because how I won is it said, we shall investigate. We shall. So that word is, a very strong legal term that obligates you to do what you say you're going to do.
It's a promise, right?
And so that's no longer there. I mean, there's still the
Wow.
federal rules that they have to
Yeah.
abide by, but those are much more broad. So I don't know if the waiver
Right,
is
because that
still
was the
there.
main thing you won on. It was essentially a breach of contract because the word shall is a contract between the college and the student, and they
Yes.
failed.
That's how I won. Yes. So I know they changed the language to be a lot more vague. So I hope that
That is
again, I
such a
know.
disservice to students and our community to adapt policy because they can't uphold a promise that they should be making to our students. We should be making a promise to the students that we will protect them, that we will investigate, and that we will get to the bottom of any sort of truth that is being told to us. That's
That,
this is insane.
that's what was so appalling about your post about this predator, because I know how they've changed their policy. So when they say that there hasn't been any instances, that's exactly what they said all the way up to the Ninth Circuit. We don't know what you're talking about, and it's like
Right.
they
It's a
will
lie.
they'll never stop saying that they didn't do anything wrong, even though all the way up to the highest court possible in the situation, everyone has told them you are absolutely wrong. You're never going to hear them admit it. When they lost, I know that like a mass email was sent out saying, we don't want to talk about it. We're not talking about it. Even on a state level, like this went global. It went to like Denmark, Sweden, the UK, India, but the Oregonian didn't report on it.
So they didn't.
So I'm just like, it was very, very kept quiet. So surprisingly, everywhere outside of Oregon, it was exploding. And in Oregon, it was not being discussed. And so when you say that there's a predator, that doesn't mean that he's not being a predator. It just means they're doing what they do best and saying, we don't know what you're talking about. And so
this is a master class in letting go of the idea that you're ever going to get an apology from your abuser. There are a lot of people out there that they chase that validation, and this is kind of a very large scale example of that. Never expect an abuser to tell the truth, to admit wrongdoing, to atone, to feel genuine remorse. If you get it, that's cool, but don't ever
you usually
expect
won't.
it.
But instead, so I just became who I became now. And so like, you don't have to apologize. You're going to be sorry enough. I mean, anytime
Words
anyone
through fire.
like you're going to be seeing me until, I don't know, I'm finally assassinated, because I will stand up for anyone who's suffering the way that they made me suffer, and I'll be in their corner. And just like I'm being here now. And again, I know you're not here to slam and defame SWAC. And technically the truth is not defamation. The truth is the truth. That's why I'm safe when I say the things that I'm saying. It's like, you want to see the evidence, but
right.
And I know that you're not trying to have an ugly battle, but we need people who actually care about protecting the students so that they can have an experience like I had in law school. Like I had, in my undergrad, at pretty much every other college I've been to outside of SWAC has been a really safe place. And that's what SWAC needs to be. It needs to be proud of its heritage, proud that it's the first community college in the state. And the culture needs to change so that students can become the best versions of themselves and not timid and fearful and traumatized.
Unfortunately, I do think the reality is we're dealing with some people who are very, very, very fond of power. and are not afraid to wield their power to keep it. And so, like Chris has found out running for this SWAC position, they'll they'll go pretty hard. And so I don't think there's really, when you're trying to remove abusive people from power, people who protect predators, people who lie to the public, I mean, blatant, flat out lies, they're not going to just go, you know what, my bad. How about I step down and let someone else take over? That's not what
They're
these
going
people are going to
door to
do.
door spreading lies at this very moment. The
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
couple weeks, I have had ring videos sent to me and anecdotal evidence of lies being spread out of the mouths of people working for, as you call it, the network. Which makes me sound like a total nut and conspiracy
That's what
theorist.
they want you to sound like, though. And honestly, that's exactly like why I had, and now I am such a hyper vigilant person. Like, they say there's two sides to every story, and I'm just like, okay, but here's my side, and the screenshots, and the surveillance video, and the court record, and this, so that's how I approach every confrontation, every conflict. I mean, I will overwhelm you with evidence, because when I pick up now that they taught me how to be gaslight proof. So I don't envy you for what you're going through, but I hope that the community understands that this isn't even like a partisan issue. It's just an issue of, this is where your kids need to go to feel safe. This is where your community educates its future, and what kind of environment and future professionals do you want that to represent for your community? So I really hope that the community, and like you said, I think everyone has a SWAC story, or everyone knows someone who has a SWAC story.
My sister has a SWAC story.
So I think that should just really be the message here, that they're exactly what you're saying. There needs to be a culture shift. And it's not about right versus left or anything like that. It's about just what we can all agree on needs to happen in higher education for everyone who goes there to feel safe. And your post, although alarming, was not surprising. And I'm terrified for the people who are around that predator right now, and as should anyone be.
For sure.
Why it is so difficult. So, I have 3 different degrees in social sciences. I've read the literature on rehabilitation. When it comes to sexual predators, things like that, behavioral science is my background. And so there is a lot of both theory and practice on how to reintegrate sex offenders into society in a way that lowers recidivism. That really can be done. There is zero literature that suggests the appropriate rehabilitation environment for a teacher who molested his 17-year-old his students, is at another school where he is proctoring GED exams for 17-year-old students.
Right.
There is no like professional recommendation that we do anything remotely like that.
It's insanity. It's taking an alcoholic out of rehab and making them a bartender.
Right.
I mean, and it is the exact same thing. It is an impulse. It is an addiction. It is something that needs to be managed through distance and a lot of treatment. So the fact that it's just like, here on a platter for you, here's all your temptation. So,
and what's frustrating about it is the people who are going, oh, well, they have rights. Well, why didn't our school notify the community and say, community, we're being put in this position where we're being pressured to do something that we think is morally horrible, and they didn't say a word. They could have taken on the state. They could have stood up and said, we don't think this is right, and we're going to get the public behind us, man, because if that's the law in Oregon, that we have to put a convicted sex offending teacher back in a school, then I think the laws at the state need to change. And that blows my mind that none of these adults who have been in these positions of power for some of them decades ever had the wherewithal to say, gee, maybe I should stand up against an abusive state regime that's forcing me to do something horribly unethical.
No,
Like,
instead, what they've said is absolute and complete defense.
right?
Like not
And
even
lies.
not even an
They lie.
acknowledgement, and lies, and not even an acknowledgement of the perception, not even an acknowledgement of what
Right?
I guarantee the entire community wants to hear, like acknowledging their concerns, their fear for their daughters.
Being heard. Yes.
Yeah, there's no acknowledgement whatsoever to what absolutely everyone's thinking. And again, I agree with I was on the board of directors for a reentry program for prisoners. So it's something I truly believe in. Like
It's important.
to prevent recidivism and to make sure that people are successful coming out of jail and prison. So I'm really all about it. I spent 2 years on that board of directors. So that's something that's really important to me. But like you said, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And what they're doing is so beyond the scope of even remotely sane or safe for their students that it's almost criminal.
Right? Like a professional
might just be.
negligence.
It is a negligence. I would argue it is a negligence for the safety. And if there is any more victims or actual complainants, please give them my information, because I'm happy to help in any way that I can, because SWAC is liable for this. If there are more victims because they put him in that place,
there are.
Then it's time to sue SWAC again.
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
If they don't change, absolutely, I will keep coming at them as many times as it takes.
Oh, they won't. These people will not change until they are forced to change, until the money is garnished from their accounts, which I don't think they can be personally sued. So it's just going to be fleecing the taxpayers.
You
which
can
sucks,
sue individuals, actually. So there are claims like intentional infliction of emotional distress is not going to hit the taxpayers. It's going to hit the individual. And it's with as much money as Patty Scott's making. Give it up, girl.
I would love to, I do worry. Actually, that was one of the things that what you went through is one of the reasons that I was so reluctant to start doing this live stream with Chris. I was a victim of stalking in the past, a little bit different situation, but I do know how disruptive harassment can be to your life. It destroyed my professional life. I had to I moved across the country and basically deleted my entire online, my professional portfolio. And so I know how awful it can be. And it's something that I've been warned to be careful, not by people who are threatening me. I mean, by people who were trying to look out for me, to be careful. And it's horrifying to think that a person who wants the truth, wants the public to know the truth, wants transparency, wants open books, wants open discussions, wants inclusion, real inclusion, diversity of thought, that someone has to kind of worry about, having people like come after them. But if nothing changes, right?
Well, the one thing that I can say about Coos Bay and Coos County is there's so much tenacity and so much grit. A lot of who I am today comes from that community, not the bad people, the good people. And this should really be a unifying issue. Like nobody should be.
It kind of is,
And so that's why they're lying. That's why they're going door to door, because they're like, we finally pushed the community too far. And if there's anything I know about Coos Bay is if you can speak to the community and get them aware of things and aligned on things, they're a force of freaking nature. I mean, there's nothing they can't do. And they can make this change. They can force these changes and they can keep their kids safe. And I'm happy to help in any way I can, starting with this. So I really do hope that you are safe and that you are successful, because I believe on all the things that I read, because I'm like, I'm not going to go on the podcast if this guy's going to just go in and make things worse. I definitely have a lot of faith that things will be, it's a brilliant start to a much better future.
What a message. Yeah. Nicole, like, wow. I'm heartbroken and inspired and impressed and sad and disappointed and excited. I am like being pulled in so many different directions just in the past hour or so. Wow.
I know it's complicated. I feel
You're
like that all the time
amazing.
too.
No, this community, I've fallen in love with it for you just like sang my song right there. Like you just explained exactly why I am sitting in the chair I'm sitting at, doing a live stream, fighting
Yeah.
for this, because it I feel something in this community beyond anything I felt anywhere else. I've lived in different states. People try and use that against me, like I'm a dirt bag or something because I moved around. I don't get it,
Well,
but
you did live in
um,
California.
yeah.
Ooh.
So yeah, yeah. They tell people I'm a Californian. I'm not a Californian. I'm an American, first of all, and second of all, I grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania. So,
See, I'm
but
Which is
from
a lot
yeah,
like Oregon.
it is.
Utah, but I lived in Oregon since age 10. So, you know, it was my childhood and upbringing too. But like even in Utah, it's like we hear California and we're just like, like
It-
stop over
Yep.
flooding.
Yeah.
I
So,
had no
but
idea what California was like. I moved there because I looked on Wikipedia and looked at the climate in the major cities in the United States and tried to find one that had the most moderate, mild climate because I was a triathlete and a ultramarathon runner, and that's what I wanted to do. And boy, was that a mistake to move to San Francisco. Well, a mistake in some aspects.
But you learn a
I
lot,
met
and I think that I think that's what the people of Coos Bay need to understand is that it is incredible community, but it is a bubble, and you have to make sure that it doesn't become a toxic bubble. And
Yeah.
like I said, dragging those people and Patty Scott out of Coos Bay and just to Eugene was such a huge shock to her. You could tell, and so they're getting away with this behavior and this insanity because there's this bubble. So it's important to make sure you have people to be like, this isn't normal. Like, this isn't okay. You have rights. You can fight back. You can do this. You can do that. And so it's important to have people that are worldly too, and to include them, especially if they fall in love with what you are and what you stand for and how great of a community it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, welcome that so much, because right now there's so many people controlling your community that are an absolute threat to you. You just don't know it if you haven't crossed their path yet.
And I've noticed a lot of kind of resentment among this. When you say the network, there's some people that I think you might, a group of people that I think you might be referring to. And sense a kind of elitism, like Coos County is a bunch of dumb hicks that don't know what's in their own best interest. So we need to come in and like show them how to be civilized.
Exactly. And that should,
people.
I mean, if I know anything about the people of Coos Bay, that mentality in itself is top priority of things that they despise, because they're brilliant, hardworking, incredible family structures, and just incredible Americans. And they really stand for what it really means to have that American grit. So to have, and you're exactly spot on. They really do think that everyone below them is stupid, and that they're mice. That's almost what I was saying about what happened to me, is like,
They
there's
have
no
said
rhyme
it
or
to me. They
yeah.
have articulated it just like you did to my face. It's crazy.
So what happened to me was something they did all the time. It was a cat and mouse game, because they're elites, they're bored, and they like to play with them. They're playing with the mice that they think are so stupid and so easy to mess with. And again, they use the same playbook. So once I learned the playbook, it was so easy to just be like, just throwing it back in their faces. And it took a lot of work, and I had to answer for my every move, and I had to do all sorts of different, jumping through hoops, but I did it. And they weren't expecting that because they thought that I'm just another dumb hick. So I'm like, and I don't think there is anyone I've met in Coos Bay that I'd call stupid. So it should be infuriating to them that they are actually,
It should be.
that their
And
children,
the idea that we
Yeah.
don't appreciate our lifestyle, that,
No.
that somehow our rural lifestyle, like, it's funny that these things that our politicians keep pushing keep getting voted down, and they just are not hearing the message. Maybe we kind of like to be rednecks. Maybe we kind of like to be a small town. And I get that, we do need some development for infrastructure improvement, and, we want people to be able to stay here. We do need housing. And so there's an upper limit to that philosophy, I guess. But there is something to the idea that people from here, generations of people who have been born and raised, family after family that's been in this area, they like the way they live.
Absolutely.
They like their lifestyle.
Which is exactly why the one institution in which allows them, like you said, to just get a career and stay in their community and continue the generation after generation and become the professional that they want to become within the community, and keep that way of life. They need SWAC to be safe first.
Yeah,
that is
right.
that is the gateway. That is the gateway for everyone in the community who wants to. They have a lot of trade, professions, and there's so much coming out of SWAC and so much that SWAC can do, that support what the local community supports, and the type of jobs that are prominent there. And so it starts there. I mean, it really starts there. We need an environment at SWAC where the local community can stay the local community and be safe in doing so.
We need to bring community back in community college.
I like that. Is that your slogan? Because it should be.
It's a friend of mine. Yeah. Vote for Richard Coleman for SWAC.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
He came up
I
with
like
that.
that.
We were on a conference call and he said it, and I'm like, that's damn good. That is gold. But he meant it.
It
He said
is.
it because he meant it. It was like he was just brainstorming like what conveys what he's about, and that was it. So anyways, yeah. This has been awesome. I appreciate it. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to touch on, Nicole? This conversation has gone in 7 different ways, and I just want to make sure we've covered the whole picture.
No, I'm going to leave an email address, to anyone who's listening. Like, my name is spelled so funky. It's my ex-husband's name right here. He said when his ancestors came over, they were inbred and illiterate, and I thought it was a joke, but once you get to know him, it makes perfect sense. But so watch out for the I's and the L's. But an email address is NicoleGililland15@gmail.com. Don't ever be afraid to reach out if you need an advocate, if you're going through what I went through, because again, everyone has a SWAC story. So I am here. I am here to support you and to help, ignite whatever. I mean, it's so scary, and you guys are experiencing it yourself. So it's terrifying. And the more people, you vastly outnumber the people who are scary. So I'm here to help in any way that I can. So that's just what I want to close with.
Yeah. And that's such a good message, to let people know that if you are in a situation where you are witnessing bullying and harassment, document as much as you can, and reach out to anyone in the community that you know is part of a potential support system, because there is a support system out here, and it's growing. So join it. You do not have to go through this stuff alone. You don't have to be the sole target. You don't have to put up with it.
Exactly. I'm inspired by getting to be here and seeing the comments too. Thank you so much for the support. So I really have a lot of hope. And so I'm really glad I got to meet you both. And I'm going to be following this very closely because it's to my core. I mean, it's really to my
Right?
core.
I mean,
And
it's a huge part of who you are at this point.
it is. And so that's why I'm never going to stop being passionate about it. I find healing in getting opportunities to help change that dynamic. And
Hell
I
yeah.
get to exude that, through me onto my children who also were victims. So it means a lot to turn them into survivors as well.
Absolutely.
I'm going to embarrass you one more time and bring up Cheryl's comment here. You mentioned earlier about this community's tenacity and grit. And the first interaction I ever had with that was hearing about Steve Prefontaine when I was in high school as a runner and learning about his tenacity and grit. And a quote has stuck with me my whole life. It's written on the mural downtown. To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And that's near and dear to me. And I think you have a gift, Nicole, and I appreciate that you have shared it, that you've given your best in this shitty situation that was thrust upon you. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on here to tell your story.
Thank you so much for having me. And please never hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
We will stay in touch. Keep us
We will
updated
be in
if
touch.
anything changes. For
Perfect.
sure.
All right. Have a great night.
Good to meet
See
you.
ya.
Bye, Nicole.
You too.
That
Oh my
was
God, she's
insane.
wonderful.
I was not expecting half of
Ugh.
that.
Yeah, she's
I'm
amazing. What an incredible human being. Wow.
the inspiring story out of Coos County. I mean, turning something, what did she say? Lemonade, making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
She made like margaritas.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean,
Yeah,
she's
next level. She's got mojitos. She's got what you need.
wow.
Man,
I'm like, I'm mind blown. And yeah, I don't know. I'm
I had
speechless.
no idea. I didn't know about this lawsuit.
I
Had
knew a
no
little bit. I had
idea.
read the like judgments, the couple page, and just kind of had a summary. And but it's like, and I had done it kind of in my early investigation into SWAC, and then now I've met so many people and so many. I mean, just today I've met in person and through messenger and phone calls different people, and these stories are growing at like the vastness of some problems going on. But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for our community to come together. It's an opportunity
It
for
is.
us to um, turn something into lemonade and make it an asset to our community again.
It really is. This is an opportunity to root out some fundamental cultural problems in our community. I had no idea it was going to be this bad. I'm genuinely shocked at how big it is because it does stem back. I mean, you look at the group of people who were protecting bullies to the point where they got sued and lost for over $1 million, to them protecting a freaking sex offender that abused students, to like then the lies to cover it up, Patty Scott double dipping. This stuff is wild. And
Yeah,
it is
it
hard to like, how are these people not somehow like committing some kind of crime?
it's
I mean,
approaching that level. I mean, it's nuts. And somebody asked me if I'm able to share the ring videos I mentioned earlier that they're going door to door spreading lies. I'm not going to play into it, and they're little petty lies, right? Like telling people that I've had every opportunity to hear the college's side of things, that the president has offered to meet with me multiple times. That's bullshit. That's a complete lie.
if she
The
would have, you would
incumbents
have CC'd
mentioned,
me on the emails.
right, or Prove it. Send the email out to the public. Show them.
Yeah, yeah,
You have
yeah,
my permission. They're not going
yeah.
to, because there isn't. There was never. She's never spoken to me once. Never. I mean, I've any communication I've ever had is through her assistant, and it has
Yeah.
not been about Patty. None of it's been about Patty. So, um, yeah, it's a lie. They mentioned it at the forums I did. They said that um I've been offered a meeting. That's false. So and that's the sort of stuff from the ring. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. They say I have a criminal history, and I went into that on the Rob Taylor report. I don't. I was arrested for not wearing a mask in Safeway during the
Right,
pandemic
right.
in California, and it was a false arrest. The charges were dropped. I'm not a criminal. I've had no other criminal history. That's insane. But
And
you know what I
that's
mean?
kind
Like
of,
if I go and start addressing these 20 things that they bring up, now all of a sudden I'm playing the game, and we're not
well,
talking about SWAC. We're not talking about the community and where we can go. And that's what they want.
deflect,
So I'm
deflect.
not going to play
This
the
is
game.
what, straw man?
Yeah.
Is that what they're doing? Straw man?
Gaslighting, straw man. I don't know. Straw man,
I think
probably.
straw
All
man.
these things are new to me, and it's all evil is what it is.
It is, it is. I really think that covert abuse tactics are the root, are the heart of evil. And I, man, the more you know, the more people learn about what exactly it is people do to manipulate, bully, intimidate, harass, the more you can spot it in local people who are trying to lie to you. It's so important to be able to recognize it, because people are not dumb, people are catching on. The other thing too, Chris, with about releasing those ring cameras is you're that would be kind of doxing people, because their ring camera is going to catch,
Their
there
home
could
and
be
them.
identifying stuff, and
And
like, I
honestly,
don't.
the person speaking the lies probably doesn't even know that they're lying. They've probably been told by the Democrat Party or Joe Benetti's PAC, the Political Action Committee, is South Coast Forward. Those are the two big players involved that are sending people door to door and spreading these lies. And it's probably not the low level people. They're trusting other people higher up with that, and they probably believe that it's the truth. So I'm just not.
Right.
I don't need to get into it. And people have said that I'm politicizing all this. Well, first of all, a sex offender on a college campus in a position of power, that's
That's a
not.
weird
There's
thing
no
to say about that.
right. That's not
That's
politicized. I mean, that's
weird.
an actual crisis. That's a
Yeah,
crisis
yeah,
of culture at the college. But let
yeah.
people, want to make that act. I have I have turned down opportunities to have bombshell interviews on this program that would blow people's mind, and I've turned it down in the sake of following justice and hoping that our system works, and not politicizing this race to the best of my ability. There's a line, right? We have to make sure that we're being transparent and sharing with the community the truth. Um, but I also want to trust that if there are criminal allegations, that they're processed through that
Yeah,
system, and
yeah.
until we
I know
find out that the system is broken. I'm being very
you've
vague,
put a
but
lot of, yes, and to piggyback on your vagueness, I know that you have done a lot to protect witnesses, protect, what might be considered whistleblowers, and to, protect the integrity of the justice system, and at least allow it the opportunity to do what it's meant to do.
we
And so
hope
I guess
we'll see what happens.
to some
Yeah.
extent we just ask for patience, because we get tipped off. Somebody sends us a screenshot, or someone sends us a document that maybe they weren't supposed to share, but maybe needs to be seen. Then we can do FOIL requests. We can request these records. And then once we get the documents, this is basically how
Right.
people at the federal level have been turned on to massive, massive corruption operations. People told them where to look. So that's what's happening now. People are telling us where to look. So we have seen the documented evidence. We just have to wait until we retrieve it ourselves through the system that's set up for that. so that it's all done properly.
100%. Yep.
But it
Waiting
doesn't
on
take long.
documents
You said that they've been getting faster with getting you stuff that you've asked for, right?
until this week, but we'll see. Maybe they were just at a dentist appointment. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
they might want to get you those
we're waiting on
documents.
documents that we already
Yeah.
have. Let's say that.
It would
So,
behoove them to make sure that they don't do anything to intentionally delay that. I don't think that would be
right.
wise. I could see the
Well,
appeal
yeah.
in trying to do something like that, but it would not be wise, I don't think.
It would be interesting if a report of an investigation was conveniently released after the election, right? That would be convenient for them,
Who knows?
wouldn't it?
We've got some rogue websites popping up, revealing some truths about some unsavory folks. I don't, looks like some people finally pissed off the right people, and frankly, I'm here for it.
We should probably shut up before we commit suicide.
Right? I don't want to meet the
We
Clintons,
suicide
buddies.
ourselves. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, did you have anything else? Like we touched on the lawsuit thing, but I mean, um,
Man, I
yeah.
mean, where do we
Uh,
start? I mean, do you want to get into it in this episode, or do you want to wait until we have all the documents and all the evidence to deep
oh, for
dive
sure.
into
Yeah,
all
we
of it?
should. Yeah. Even just I've been trying to get this dang video out. So I went Sunday, I go to SWAT campus. I got there around 8 in the morning and was there till noonish by myself, then walked a security guard around a little bit to some camps, and then another friend joined me for an hour or two. Like I was there almost all day. Um, Investigating, filming, talking with people at the college, talking with people in the neighborhood, that just opposite Lakeshore and stuff. That their boundary is right up to the college, the woods there at the college. Anyway, so this is like what a day, and I have so much footage and stuff to condense, and I've been so busy with other stuff, but um, just insane. There's almost too much. We don't have enough time. We like legit don't have enough time to
I
educate the
know.
public on the
I know. It's
actual
a lot to
reality
go over.
of some
And
of
that
this.
that
So
interview with I just forgot her name. Michelle?
the woman we just had on,
Yeah,
Nicole.
Nicole. Why did I think
Yeah.
Michelle? Um, I lost my train of thought. Keep going. I was looking up
Oh,
something
or
about
did you mean the
SWAT.
interview from like a couple weeks back with
Oh,
Rob?
no, 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 no. The interview with Nicole was so good that, like, you just want to
Yeah.
let her tell the whole story. So, the stuff that we have, the other stuff that we have to talk about is not going away. So,
Right.
I was just wondering, I was going to bring up, so when my sister went to SWAC, it was a known thing that girls could not go walk around John Toppet's Lake. It was known to not be safe. There were known instances of sexual assault. And now looking back on it, I'm like, gosh, why wasn't our school doing more back then to make sure that the school property there was safe?
Yeah.
And so
I mean, I
I just, it's all coming together. You know what I mean?
I was there all day Sunday, and I did not see a single student or person from the neighborhood. No one else was on the trails on the SWAC property. This is next to Empire Lakes.
Right.
Um, Not a single person except the 10 homeless people that I encountered. No one. On a beautiful Sunday, and there were people on campus. I was all over campus, like on the regular campus, tons of people. Old ladies walking their dogs, kids, that live there enjoying the outdoors, but no one on these trails. And they're beautiful trails, and they're actually spending time and money maintaining them, and
Yeah,
and
they are. It
and
is
no, but
so
no one's
pretty in
using them
there.
because they're creepy and scary. Like there, you
I've
you
been
walk through it
followed
and you're
through
like,
there.
there's towering redwoods and cedars and like the underbrush, and it's like beautiful, and it's by the lake. But then every 50 feet, you're also encountering some like little creepy path, and if you poke your head in, you can see that there's an encampment in there. And
Yep.
you don't know if somebody's in there or not. For
And
the
you don't know
first
what their
actual
state is.
couple hours, I didn't run into anybody. And I was like, I'm impressed. They're actually all inactive. All these camps are inactive. And then
Mm.
I just boom, one after the other. And there were
So they've moved.
couples. So like I met 10 people, but the amount of encampments was active encampments was only like four, I believe 4 or 5. So it's like that's a lot, and it's also not a lot, right? Like it's a big property, but you're talking like 30 encampments at least, when you add all the inactive ones, and they rotate through them, like they reuse these campsites. And if they're going to be campsites, why don't we make it a campground and allow the public to utilize it and enjoy
Right.
that?
Make it an
So
actual campground. Yeah, it's a good idea.
something we've got to do
It's
something, because without focusing on it and acknowledging it as a problem, it's not going away. And
it is just
um,
kind of thinking back to like everything that my sister was saying back in 2015 about what was going on over there back then, reflecting back on it and going, oh my God, this has been a problem for a long time. And no one in power, no one in leadership really talks about it. Like, wow, your community of women doesn't want to go jog around the park, the lake, the park that we all pay for because they're afraid of being sexually assaulted. And nobody
in
really
order for
addresses it.
the kids and the staff on campus to get from campus to the other side of the lakes to enjoy Empire Lakes and John Toppet's Park, which should be an asset. Like that should be advertised.
Right?
That is so cool to have that right next door
Yeah.
to SWAC. But the avenue to get there is not safe. I don't want to be
No.
like an alarmist, but I also do want to make sure that people understand that the people in those woods are I want to respect, like Nicole was talking about, that like these people might be there in situations that are outside of their control, and they're good people, and I have met people like that. But I
That's
also
why there
do
should
know that
always
some
be
of the people,
programs for people to
right,
go into if they'd like to.
but I do also know the names and the history and background of some of the people that I met
Yeah.
on Sunday, and they're not safe people at this juncture
Right.
in their life. Maybe there's hope for them someday to change, but at this juncture in their life, they're not safe people to be around, some of them. And that's we somebody needs to handle that. And there are
Right.
ideas. I'd love to share them and be part of the solution. I'm trying to get that in writing so I can, when I put out this video and show people what it is like on SWAC property, they can understand that I've at least kind of thought down that path of, well, how do we fix it?
What do we do
Um,
about it? Right.
which I'm constantly thinking about. It's like an illness. I do it all day long. How do we fix this? How do we
I
fix
know,
this?
right? God, sometimes you just want to turn it off.
Well,
Yeah, so
should we turn it off? should we should we end this?
it never
Uh,
turns off. Yeah, I was looking up to see if there were any, but the thing is, even our news, our news outlets, our local news doesn't really publish very much of the real quality of life stuff. So it's it
there's no investigative journalism around here. None.
no. And I know it's really frustrating to just hear people complain all the time, but the reason keep people keep complaining about this stuff is because they don't feel heard. If leadership actually made people feel heard by one, listening, and by two, doing something about it, acknowledging it,
Yeah,
taking action, then people would probably stop complaining about it so much.
exactly. Or they would do it more privately, and we wouldn't be airing all our dirty laundry. It actually kills me that the fact that there might be future or potential future students at SWAC who are
Oh,
discouraged
I
by
know.
the things we're uncovering, and that kills me. Like we were even just talking about lawsuit. I don't want a lawsuit. I don't want the college to lose money. That's insane, because then we lose it. The taxpayers
Yeah,
pay
and
that.
it
So
ends up costing the taxpayers when they could just do the right thing. Like step
right,
out of your ego and stop making it about you and make it about the students.
Right. There's some comments here, and I want to kind of bring up people had some
Oh,
questions.
good.
So
Yes.
Cheryl says, do you know why they let the sex offender out of jail today? So she's referring to Henry Delaney, who is a convicted sex offender who owns Northwest Fitness Gym in Coos Bay. He was arrested yesterday morning at his gym for sex abuse, second degree, and he was released today. Trying to see what I can share. So he was released today. Why he was
Just
released, I can't totally answer that because part of it is I don't totally know. But I believe my understanding is that it's in an effort to form the best case that can be made and make sure that um, justice is served for victims, which is confusing if you're letting somebody go. And I don't think he was arraigned. So, I mean, he's like not even out on bail, I believe. I'm still working on getting these
there
details.
may be hold if they're not immediately pressing charges. There may be a hold limitation that is an Oregon state law. I think
It's 36 hours.
so. There could be something going on with that. Like,
Right.
people don't understand that a lot of the things that our police and sheriff are doing that doesn't make sense are a reflection of our legislation coming out of Salem. And we do need leaders who are going to step up, step in front of the camera and say that. Say,
Right.
we
I was
had to
just going to
let
say, like,
a
we can
freaking
acknowledge
child,
that, but also like
yep,
acknowledge it
step up
and
and like
shout it
literally,
and say
yeah,
this is
say,
bullshit.
we had to let this person go who is being accused of these crimes. Granted, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but we had to let this person go back out into the community where may have hurt someone because this Oregon State ORJ dot yada yada yada, and give the
Right.
law. Let people know exactly who is responsible for this kind of stuff. Same with SWAT.
100%.
If they were
Oh,
somehow
and
forced by Oregon state law to bring a sex offender, a student molesting sex offender back onto a campus, they should have told the whole community. They should have drug Oregon State through every inch of mud they could find over it.
yep.
Like,
No,
have a
and if they're
backbone.
afraid of lawsuits or whatever, they can be super ambiguous, right? Like the sheriff could stand up and say, or the DA, and say
Yes.
today,
Just give the
due to state
facts.
laws, we have had to make an unfortunate, disturbing decision today, and it might result in this person reoffending, being out in the community and being allowed to re-victimize his victims. And you're right, you
Right.
could be ambiguous, not say a name,
Yes. Yes.
not
And
give
we
details on
have.
a specific crime, and just speak
Hmm.
in general of laws and
Hmm.
criminals, but still get your point across. I mean,
And
shouldn't
our
we
city,
have a higher expectation of being more articulate and getting that message out? But
absolutely. Absolutely. They have counsel. I was just going to say they have legal
yeah,
counsel.
craft a
They
statement ahead
can
of
run
time.
they can run the message by legal counsel and then
Right.
stand up and some sheriffs are across the country. I think our sheriff might be open to something like that if he had some more ambitious leadership around him. So maybe that is an option for the near future, for Coos County.
It's a
Um,
team effort for sure, and we need to start supporting that sort of culture. We're talking about culture, and
yes,
the county and the city leadership needs to adapt their culture to meet
yes.
the demands of the public. The public's demanding more. We're not asking anymore.
Man, how many times does the public have to vote no before the message gets through that we want change? I don't think that anyone doubts that, or, people understand that, listen, like to fix the water system problems, it's going to require money, right? To bury power lines that cost money. Like,
Right.
people understand that they just are voting no because they don't trust leadership. And
Right.
so it's like, I mean, yes, property owners are sick of being treated like a piggy bank, but a large part of it is that our leaders are holding themselves up on this kind of intellectual pillar where they think they know best, and they're just kind of top down trying to force their will on people. And I don't, man, like, how many
They're not
times
even hiding it.
no, and they're being a little bit, aggressive about it in some instances. When are
Yeah.
they gonna I don't think they're gonna come around, honestly. I don't know if they are not getting the message yet that
I think they need to be replaced. We need to start looking amongst
yeah,
ourselves in our own community, the common man and woman, and find common ground candidates, find common
yeah,
ground true leaders, and that's who we should center around. I can be partisan at times, but we all as a community need to focus on the like actual um, real problems in this community that are affecting us. And I think we actually will all will certainly find a majority, but I think we could find a super majority to support certain people as long as they're focused on actual issues in our community that are immediate and apparent and that there are viable solutions for. So we all have to play a part in that. Be fine looking for people like that. And then when you find them, support them, push them forward, and give them
yeah.
advice and feedback. And those people should be willing to take it. So,
And be
um,
willing to spread the message. Talk to your friends and family, talk to your people at the grocery store, talk to your gas station person, just talk to people about who's doing what, and
for
ideas, because
sure.
we do need to focus on safe public spaces. We cannot thrive as a tourist industry because people are doing research and they're deciding, wow, Coos Bay is the third most dangerous city in Oregon. I don't think I'm going to vacation there. And so, what are we doing with all of this money that we're pumping into tourism when tourists are not going to want to come here because it is unsafe? We have to
It's
take care
it's
of
going
quality of
into
life
DEI
crimes.
administrators. Yeah, it's going into
How
high salaries for administration.
the
Yeah,
irony of, like, everywhere you look where there's DEI, I guarantee you're going to find discrimination. I guarantee it, because it's baked into it. Everywhere where we've looked where there have been hardcore, like, DEI pushers, we have found bullies who are anything but inclusive. It
and for
never
anyone who feels
fails.
that we're drifting from local issues and going into partisan politics, we're not. This
No, we're
actually,
not.
there are DEI administrators and budgets being being paid out in this community
Yes.
and in a community that can't fund a jail. And I'm not
And
saying the
there are,
county, I'm not saying there's county funds that are being used for DEI that could go straight to the jail, but I'm just saying our priorities on a high level in this community are imbalanced for sure.
yes.
Um,
And there was
it's
a recent contract for the city of Coos Bay that actually did have the words minority preference.
it was North Bend.
Preference
Yeah.
will be given to minority applicants, I believe is what
Yep.
it was.
Yep.
That is racism. That's a
I spoke
textbook.
multiple times at North Bend meetings about that, and they have denied and denied and denied that is even remotely discriminatory.
They need to be sued. It's
Wow.
institutionalized discrimination. It's an institutionalized disenfranchisement of an individual based on the color of their skin. It is the definition of racism, and they should be sued for it. Man, if I was a contractor,
Yeah. I but we do have other bigger issues, but that is definitely a distraction and annoying and it's problematic and it's costly and it's
I
stupid.
think it's
But
all part of the
yeah,
same cultural mentality to protect people who don't need to be protected and to discriminate against people wantonly to serve an agenda. It is all part of the same cultural issue, I think.
Oh, the way to beat discrimination is by instituting a merit-based system and a merit-based culture. That is how
Bingo.
you have a colorblind society,
Yeah.
a gender-blind
Yeah.
society. That is how you achieve true equality,
You know what I'm all
not equity.
for? Like, if we're going to give programs that help people make themselves better, so that people from uh, s- lower socioeconomic backgrounds, people who come from areas that have generational poverty, stuff like that. Like, we do need programs that will give people the tools they need to lift themselves up out of those situations.
But you just
But that
mentioned
can be
socioeconomic, which is not gender,
not
not
racial.
color. Right.
Right.
It's about
Right.
lack of merit, essentially. Like your family is
Yeah.
lacking finances, or
Yeah.
like that's like the economic angle. So like you live in a
Yeah.
community in an area of town that is economically depressed. That has nothing to do with your color of your skin or
Right.
the equipment downstairs. It has, or your sexual preference or whatever. None of that stuff matters. It's that I like, isn't it insane that like you and I get that on such a simple level, and all the other people in this community get it, but you have leaders at the top pushing something completely
I
contrary
think
to it.
when you get too far removed from a phenomena, you can begin to stylize it in your mind. It becomes an abstract of itself. And when people do that, they start to kind of like romanticize and cut away the bits that they, don't really want to be associated with, and it changes a thing. I don't know if that makes
It's
sense.
crazy. It does. It does.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's why I also believe in the small communities, because we are so far removed from our politicians, like in Washington, D.C., or even at the state level, and it's not working because of that. Like for
Right.
like left and right aside, like policies aside, it's just simply not working because we're so distanced. Our country was never supposed to be like that. And but here we are. But that's why, Nicole started out right away. She was like, local matters. This is what matters. This is how
Yeah,
we
I love
affect
that.
change. And it's cool. So
Yeah,
man, we got a bunch of, I was like, oh, we're gonna go through comments, and then we got one, and we've got like 10, 15 more.
oh boy.
Jeff, oh, did it work? Jeff said, well, why wasn't a press release made? You got us, because yeah, we talked about
That is
that.
interesting.
But KEZI was emailed about the Henry Delaney issue and arrest, nothing. Yeah, I mean, maybe it takes time for them to like put gas in the car and drive over here and do a little news story. I don't know. Or maybe they got rid of all the reporters, or maybe
You
they
know,
just don't care.
it's interesting, that email that Rob Taylor released, that was their email to him explaining what a great guy he is. You guys, you can't let predators buy access to victims. Just because someone does a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're not a predator. It doesn't mean that they're not dangerous. No one is all good or all bad. Bad people do good things. And sometimes good people do like bad things, and eventually, like, if you do enough bad things, you're probably not a good person anymore. But like, you get what I'm saying, right? I
For
just
sure.
don't understand how people can be bought that easily. It's just 5 grand here, 15 grand there.
Yep.
Oh, a free pair of shoes or whatever, the cheap pair, like,
I mean, in Henry Delaney's case, he's working with uh, children of people in high power in our area and promising
yeah,
them the world, promising them the ability to achieve greatness in collegiate athletics, and which
yeah,
is a catapult into greatness beyond college. And that is like grooming to the highest extent. And but I think facts will come out that will explain it for people. And I also just want to let people know that when we look into things, we get second and third opinions on them, and we get multiple angles, and we do our research. And in Henry's Delaney case, I have absolutely done my research. Rob Taylor, back in like 2017 and 2018, even spoke with some of his victims from Washington State. Um, don't want to get into it, but I have done my research on the current stuff, and I believe the victims. I
You
I
you know,
do.
I hope people understand that in these situations, sometimes we find ourselves in a catch-22 where if we don't come out and tell the thing as soon as it happens, it's like, well, why didn't anybody say anything sooner? Why didn't anyone say anything when this first happened?
Right.
And then if we say something too soon, it's like, well, why can't you give us all any cooperating documents? Which is
Right.
a totally fair ask. But
Totally
it's like,
fair.
well, because we were tipped off by a whistleblower.
Right.
And so it's it is the nature of the beast, it's going to be a lose-lose when it's in the beginning, but worth the wait when you have fact checked everything, when you have all the corroborating evidence, when you can lay a full case in front of people and say we are for sure giving you all of the facts. That's the most important thing.
And I appreciate people holding us accountable too. If we're
Yeah,
not, if we're
yeah.
disseminating information or painting something in the wrong light, let us know. We're well, I appreciate accountability, but I
The
also, yeah, I just really need people to know that we're here to continue putting the pressure on the network, as our guest for the night explained, and it's coming down. So
the
it
cool
takes a
thing,
fight, and we're
Chris,
fighting.
about people reaching out to us asking for substantiation, the cool thing about that is an opportunity to forge a connection with someone who you know is a person of integrity. So now you have a line of communication out with someone that you can build an alliance with, who you know has a high standard, you
Oh yeah,
know,
it's great that people care
and
about the facts,
yeah.
right? Like we're on the
So
same page then.
it's a
But
cool way to meet people, I guess, when they reach out and they're like, hey, can you prove this?
yeah,
Well, as a matter of fact, I can. And if I can't quite yet, I will be. So bear with me and don't.
I just hope that
But
we're building trust with people. I really do, and I can be edgy. I can be edgy at times, and so I
yeah,
appreciate sometimes I shoot myself in the foot in the trust arena, but I'm working on it, and I just hope people
yeah.
keep following the stories. We'll have more next week. We do this every Wednesday. If this is your first time watching, and it's supposed to, the initial aspect of Coos County Citizen Council was to have a council of people, and us not necessarily be the only people doing this. So if
Yeah.
anybody else has a story, or if they want to host or whatever and be involved, come on down. I mean, this was started because there was a void in our community of investigative journalism and transparency and true representation of our community in government and politics around here. So this is that void being filled. And if you feel like it can be filled better, thank you for stepping up and helping out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would love, and is if people want to tell their stories, there's opportunity to do that. Of course, we have to substantiate everything. So there needs to be corroborating evidence and stuff like that. We have to be able to fact check stuff. But the thing is, when people go public, if they go public in numbers and there are more and more and more people, there is protection in numbers. And so it is really important for people to come forward and support each other and know that there is a group of people who are working to help them out. It's been pretty cool seeing the number of people that are, if they can't say it publicly, they'll say it privately and will help out in ways where they can. And I think we are forming a pretty cool community of people who want to see Coos County become a great place to live. And that's
It is a great
inspiring,
place to live, but it can
Yeah.
be better.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be safer.
Sorry,
It
I
could
have
be
high
safer.
expectations. Yes. Oh, yes.
Man, I hate that I felt safer on the streets of New York City than I do on the streets of Coos Bay. And it's not
I
everywhere in
have,
Coos Bay, but there's a lot of places that are
yep.
intense, man. And we can do better. I think we can get our crime down to the national average, and it may require standing up to the state to do it. And
Oh, yeah, it's going to have to. But we're going to have to prove a template here of what a
yeah,
local community can do, kind
yeah,
of like what Grants Pass is trying to do with the
yeah.
homeless issue. We're going to have to come up with some creative way to prove that we can do a little here, and then show it to other counties, and then come back together and then present it to the state, and maybe give them a few middle fingers and fight a little battle. But it'll hopefully, that's the diplomatic route. I don't want
I
to
was
talk
thinking of a
about the
way more
non-diplomatic route.
legally aggressive
Yeah, you and I
avenue.
diverge on that, but
Yeah.
is that the right word? Diverge? Yeah.
Diverge. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah, we'll
hate
see.
lawyers. I hate, not lawyers, but like the lawyer, let's go get a lawyer and sue it.
Lawyering.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
yes, I hate that. But look, it worked for Nicole, and it's hopefully going to turn a page for SWAC. So that's my hope. I have a lot of hope today.
Sometimes lawyers are the only people who can make a bully stop.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the only ones. I know lawyers get a really bad rap, but man, are some of them are unsung heroes. So if we can wield the law in a way that makes Oregon a safer place to live, it will be worth it. Will all be worth it. I want to retire here and feel safe. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
for sure. I think we can do it. For sure.
Because if in 30 years this place isn't 30 years, God, I don't want to talk about how old I'm getting. Okay, in 20 years, in 10 years, when I am significantly older, I want to feel safe here. And if I don't feel safe here when it comes time to retire, I will take my money and I will leave. And I will go somewhere that is safe and tax friendly. You know what I mean?
Well, let's hope you come right back here.
I know, right? And I would rather
Let's make a pact to do in 30 years. We're going to do another live stream. No,
yeah,
we don't know
yeah,
where we'll go from tonight, but in 30
yeah.
years we'll be back on a live stream. I'll probably have just as much gray as I already do, and
You'll be white by that point, I bet.
I probably
I will
won't have
have no
hair.
gray hair because I don't age.
I'm losing hair like crazy with all the stress right now.
Really?
I am. I'm not even kidding. Anyways,
It's a real thing that happens. I lost some of my hair up here when I went through all that PTSD stuff. So I've lost some of my hair. I balded a
I went
little
to the
bit. It was
doctor
really
like 10 years
scary.
ago once. I was in some very stressful situations, and I didn't realize it. And I was like, I'm losing my hair. I need Rogaine or something. And he's like, is there something stressful in your life? And I'm like,
Oh,
well,
wow.
yeah. And that's what it was. As soon as I alleviated that stress, boom, my hair came back. Isn't that crazy? But,
It's scary,
so
man.
yeah,
We gotta
remove stress from your
self-care.
life, regrow your hair
Yeah, man.
without chemicals.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
Well, thank you for everybody watching and being a part of this. We'll continue it next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Thank you, Brandy. Always fun chatting with you.
Yeah. And I know I promised people that we were going to get into some juicy stuff. We are collecting the documents that we need to blow this all the way open. And so we were able to get answers quite fast enough. So by next week though,
Yeah,
we should actually have what we need, I think.
hopefully
We'll see.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Well, we're not going anywhere, so they might as well just rip the band-aid off.
you'd hope they would, but yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye,
See you next
everybody.
week.